This is Maureen Kafkas, the Brain BS coach here to tell you about the episode today. Today, I speak with Coach Leslie Randolph, who is a confidence coach for teenage girls and the teenage girl that lives on in all of us. We discuss how the subconscious filters of high school impact us and continue to stay with us throughout our lives, and how it impacts the way we parent our children if we don't become aware of it and do something to change it. So here you go, episode 112 of the Brain BS podcast, talking all things teen with Leslie Randolph. Welcome to the Brain BS podcast, the podcast where thought work, emotional intelligence, and universal law come together to empower humans to cut the crap and finally master their brain BS. It is time to stop blaming everybody else for your problems and start taking responsibility for your own life and emotional state. I am your host, Maureen Kafkas, a doctor of occupational therapy, a certified life coach, and an expert on brain BS. My mission is to motivate you to learn how to live consciously and manage your mind on purpose so you can create a life free of needless suffering. Now, who does not want that? Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the podcast today. I have my friend Leslie here, who happens to be a coach with us today. So Leslie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the audience what you want them to know about you.
All right. Thank you, Maureen. I'm so happy to be here. I am Leslie Randolph. I am a confidence coach for teenage girls and the teenage girl that still lives on in all of us. I share my wisdom over on a blog called The Coach Chronicles. So I'm the chief wisdom officer over there when I'm not confidence coaching young women and women that wish they had a confidence coach when they were teenagers.
Oh gosh, I'm so many, I'm sure. I want to share with the audience that it's kind of unusual for Leslie and I not to have an omelet in between us when we're talking, because we like to go to the country kitchen diner and chat about all things brain BS. But today, this is a new experience with us on Zoom. So we're going to try to be serious at times and not laugh. And well, yeah, but we'll probably laugh some. So, all right, Leslie, we're going to start with the first question that I always ask my guests. What is something that you thought was factual about yourself that you came to realize is fiction through the power of coaching?
So this came later in life, but I'm going to go with it. Something that I thought was factual about me that I realized was fiction, that I'm bad at math.
Oh, that's a good one. I was the same way. Tell me more.
I'm bad at math. So I think that message was given to me at a very young age. And I have many a story about it, certainly coming from my mother, coming from external people telling me, well, you're not very good at math. Oh, well, that's not your strong suit. And I took that identity on and just said, I'm bad at math. And I think it became something about also being a woman that, well, I'm just not that good at that. So it became part of my identity of like, well, I'm really good at soft stuff, but I'm not good at and I'm air quoting, the hard stuff like math. And that certainly informed my teenage years. And as I started to, get involved in coaching and understanding my belief systems and confronting some of those limiting beliefs, that is one of them. I'm great at math. I'm great at a lot of things when it's fueled by intention versus doubt and insecurity or other people's beliefs, what they've told me to believe.
Right. And I love this because it's so funny because I had the same thing, but I didn't figure it out through the power of coaching. I figured it out when I started college, but I didn't start college till I was 27. And I barely had to do math in it at first. But then it's like, as I got into my doctorate or my occupational therapy program and stuff, I had to take physics and chemistry after that. And then I was like, oh, I love math. I hate physics. And I learned that through experience, but it would have been so great. I took a math anxiety seminar before I started college, and they actually did a clip on the news, and I was there with this group of people because of math anxiety, which cracks me up now that I even did that. But it was like when I applied myself and I actually tried to learn math and I thought it was a possibility, it like was totally different.
So it's so interesting you say that because I saw evidence for it also in college. You know, I was hoping I could like skim through college without taking math because I believed I wasn't good at it. And then in college, I was like, I'm maybe at that point in my life, I was applying myself more. I did have that intention fuel in my in me. But I still held on to that belief. I got a great grade in college because it was so embedded in my identity of who I was that I wasn't good at math. So it's so funny you say that. I saw that too in college. I saw the grade, but I
Oh my
couldn't
gosh,
believe
we
it.
didn't even plan this, and it is the perfect segue to talk about what we're going to say, like on the podcast today, because we're talking about these subconscious filters that we get as teens in the high school setting, middle school, whatever you want to call it, and how we adopt them. We don't even realize that they're just thoughts in a frame of reference that doesn't have to be there. And we keep them for life. Like you, even in college, you didn't think you were good in math. But let's talk about like today what we're talking about. And it's like a lot more than just whether we're good at math. It's are we good enough? Are we, so let's talk a little bit about that and how you came to wanting to coach teens.
Yeah. So when I decided that I wanted to pursue a career in coaching, it really was, and I think this is so similar for a lot of people, of to to give back and this thought of like if I had known then what I know now. Um if I had known then what I know now, I probably could have saved myself a lot of heartache and a lot of suffering and a lot of, and I'm going to call them questionable choices that I made in my teenage years that chipped away at my self confidence. And so I wanted to give back to young girls that I just wish I had what I wish I had known. Um, and that breaks down to that you can always choose to love and believe in yourself. I was 38 years old later in life, actually much further from my teenage years. And I was sitting on an airplane with my husband and I was listening to Brooke Castillo talk about self-confidence. I looked over at my husband. I mean, like a light bulb had gone off on me. And I said, did you know that you can just decide to be confident? And he looked at me like I had two heads. I was like, well, yeah. And it was obviously something he had been doing his whole life. I I hadn't. I did not know that self-confidence was a choice that we could make and one that just stemmed from loving and believing in ourselves.
Well, I'm just going to stop you there, okay? Because
Please.
I don't totally buy into that at the life coach school. I love them and I learned a lot of things, and the thought work is really powerful. But your husband probably just always believed in himself and was confident, because a lot of men are with the way they're raised, but as women, we're not. So we can't just decide, okay, I'm going to be confident now. Like it's a real process, right?
100%. But it opened up this door of challenging the beliefs that had me thinking that brain BS that I couldn't just love and believe in myself. I see this with a lot of teenage girls and the teenage girl that still exists in all of us. We have a case of either the as soon as or the not enoughs. And our list of not enoughs as women, and I'm being very general here, obviously, the programming is, well, you're not skinny enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not smart enough. You're not kind enough. You're not selfless enough. Once I can break through some of that BS of, well, what is enough, and is this a benchmark that I want to prescribe to? Do I need to be a certain weight to love and believe in myself? I was really ready to give up that belief. Do I
Yeah.
want to hang my self-confidence hat on how I look in general? No. So I completely hear you. I love this thought system or this belief system of knowing, loving, and believing in yourself is the fuel to create, is the recipe to creating self-confidence. But for you, maybe it just opened that door of, okay, well, what are the beliefs that I have just allowed to believe are true, sort of that fact and fiction that I can start calling out as brain BS. And
Yeah.
once I do, I
Well,
can be more confident.
right. But I mean, so I think for some people, and everybody's different, it takes, especially if you're younger, because we do get wiser as we get older. And I don't know why
Amen.
people think being younger is so awesome, because I'm actually really liking where I am now. But it's sort of like how they talk about the intentional model and the unintentional model. You want to really understand that unintentional model and everything about it before you start trying to create a new model, because then you have to have a nervous system to also support it. So I hear what you're saying and I totally get it. And I don't want to get too caught up in this because I think we both kind of illustrated our point and what we're thinking about that. But let's you recently, because you were coming on the podcast, you listened to an old episode that I did a long time ago called "We're Not in High School Anymore, Ladies." And I did that episode because it really struck me how people continue to demonstrate like sort of the same frame of reference and the same social skills as adults long after high school gets over. Like the popular kids tend to continue to have like a life that's robust and social. And the ones who had difficulty making friends in high school, often they carry that with them throughout their lifetimes because they kind of believe that who they were in high school is permanent. Right? So can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, sure. I would still be believing that I am bad at math. You know,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that's because, and it's so perfect for this show and your mission and message of, because they have not, a lot of us have not called out our own brain BS. If we look at some of the labels that we have given ourselves, bad at math, or those not enoughs, or as you're talking about, the popular girl, well, you're going to keep showing up as that character in your life. You're going to keep, that's your script, that's your inner dialogue and how you go through life. And so the same things that maybe triggered you then will trigger you now. And the same beliefs that you had then, unless you challenge them, nothing will change.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it? Because you actually believe that's who you are, because that's what your brain offers you, like for decades after high school, it's offering you, yeah, you were never really good at making friends. Yeah, boyfriends never work out for you. Like, or the ones who, oh my God, I had so many friends, I was so popular, and they carry that with them after they leave there. So it's really interesting that people don't understand that that's totally optional and that you can let go of those high school brain filters that you acquired anytime you're ready to explore how they got there in the first place, and then decide, like you said, to become a different person.
Totally. And I think that one of the things, is it serving me? Is it propelling me? Are those beliefs, because not all of them are limiting beliefs, some of them are beautiful, right?
Mhm.
And if they are serving you in creating a life that you love and that you feel good, carry on, my friend, right?
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you want to create change in your life, and I think that's where you and I agree, it does look, to come to start looking at those thoughts and to start thinking, calling yourself on some of that BS. And do I want to keep believing this? Am I even willing to believe that it's optional? These are all questions that are wonderful to ask ourselves and to ask that inner teen within you. I can look at the root of it from back in high school, but I also see how it's showing up for me now. Am I ready to stop believing that? Am I ready to start challenging it? Am I ready to start doing something different?
Yeah. It kind of like, this is where Eckhart Tolle comes into it for me. with the model, because I feel like Eckhart taught me that I'm not my thoughts, that that's just something that my mind offers me, and my higher self is separate than those thoughts. But also, Brooke Castillo's model showed me how to implement what Eckhart was saying in a way that was like a little bit less esoteric and more practical, right? So we also have to understand not just that we can change our thoughts, but that we're not even our thoughts in the first place, and that is where the majority of our suffering comes from, no matter throughout our entire lives, as long as we buy into the drama of all those negative thoughts that are like not even true, the majority of them.
Totally. Totally. And I just want to add on that, and this is very timely for me. We're also not our feelings, right?
Yeah.
And that one was a big one for me, because I would so quickly, I'm just a highly anxious person. Well, Maureen, don't you want to call me on my brain BS?
My mouth was just opening.
I'm laughing. I for the majority of my life, anxiety is I'm a frequent flyer on the anxiety feeling train. And for so long, I just allowed myself to believe the thoughts that were fueling that anxiety. And once I was able to recognize that I am a human experiencing anxiety, I am just a human feeling a human emotion, and that's okay. Um, that was an incredibly freeing experience. And then certainly to look at those beliefs of what is causing it. So I'm not my beliefs and I'm not my feelings. I'm not my thoughts and I'm not my feelings.
Yeah. But the beauty of the thoughts and the feelings is they're like our little red flags. When we experience that feeling, we know that there's either some kind of thought error going on that's triggering that feeling, or, and this is where it differs a little from the life coach school, it's just subconscious programming trapped in our body that needs to be dealt with in a way that has nothing to do with our thinking.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we have body intelligence, and we have our mind intelligence, and we have our heart intelligence. So we have all kinds of different places to draw from, and we know if we're choosing what's right for us based on the way we feel. That doesn't mean we always feel good, because we could be doing something that's going to stem our growth and be good for us and be super uncomfortable at the same time. But you know the difference between good comfort or good discomfort and bad discomfort when you're hiding and when you're stepping up, and it requires courage, right? It feels different in your body.
Yes. Yes. So I one of my like Leslie the life coach isms is, self-confidence is not it's not a singular sensation, all right? It is, you will feel that doubt. You will feel that insecurity, particularly as you're just stepping into flexing that self-confidence muscle, as you're starting to learn the language of self-confidence and how that feels in your body. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of doubt, a lot of insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just part of the experience.
Yeah. And it's part of being human, right? That's the way it's supposed to be. We're not supposed to be in our comfort zone and staying there. And that's sort of like what happens when you leave high school and you leave the teen version behind. But you did say something earlier that struck me. And I actually think being a teen, you are supposed to have questionable decisions. Like, that's the beauty of being a teen. That's how we learn and grow. We don't have the wisdom that we have now, nor should we, because if we were supposed to, we would. And a lot of what we get to get us out of that teen version of ourselves is like it's a proactive choice, right? And a lot of times we choose that because we've experienced so much pain that we want something different. We don't want to be like beating ourselves up anymore. We don't want to feel crappy. We don't want to feel like we're not enough. And we have so much of it that it's like enough. And I'm not sure that, no, I'm not devaluing coaching teens, because especially in this day and age with social media and the prevalence of suicide so high, I think it's super important, but I also think that it's important to differentiate that the coaching isn't going to take away, nothing will take away the pain of being a teenager, but all those judgments that you have about yourself, all those stories that you actually believe, that causes way more suffering than any rejection that someone could give you or any bad grade that you get, right? So you're going to have the 50-50 where you'll have bad things happen, but being able to help a teenager to reduce that and not make it so dramatic would be huge.
Totally, totally. So I often say to moms, when I'm talking to them about the work that I do, that it's like having a professional cheerleader in her corner, and reminding her of that lesson that I learned at 38 of she can always love and believe in herself. She can pay attention to the self-talk that is running through that beautiful brain of hers, and is she being kind to herself, for so many years. And I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that my suffering served me as it got me to where I'm supposed to be, right? And some of those negative choices, and I say negative air quote, they got me exactly where I meant to be. But certainly the ride could have been, I could have been a kinder passenger to me along the way. And I wish that for the teens today, certainly to what you said of, the prevalence of social media, the pressure that a lot of them feel coming from external sources. That programming that you and I got when we were teens, it still exists. There is still messaging that is promoting the as soon as and the not enough thinking, that, what a good girl is supposed to look like, what a woman is supposed to be, how she's supposed to behave, who she's supposed to be. So to simply, I'm not taking away any teen suffering. I'm just serving as that professional cheerleader to remind her that she can choose compassion for herself, and she can choose to love and believe in herself.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the idea too that I think it's hard for a lot of teenage girls to open up to their mother. And it sounds like we're talking about girls here because we're referring to girls throughout this whole thing. So I'm assuming you coach girls, but it's often hard for some moms and teenage girls to click and connect, and they can't open up to them and tell them things, and they need somebody to be their cheerleader. So for some people, it's like the perfect solution.
Perfect solution. I agree. Thank you. And I think because part of it is that the you just don't understand, and you have to say that you're my mom mentality that comes with a teen. Whereas even if, yeah, I listen to the moms that I talk to saying the same thing. She can't hear it as well when it's an outsider and it's someone that isn't mom. And sometimes, a lot of times, I know you can appreciate this in coaching, it's about saying the thing you don't want to say out loud. It's about saying the thing that, like, you actually kind of wish you didn't believe. So if you're already having that resistance within yourself, maybe you don't want to say that to mom, but to know that you
Oh,
have
yeah,
this,
for
this,
sure. I mean,
this
I had sisters in my family. Some like I totally opened up and told my mom everything, but my sister did not want to tell her anything. But this brings up another point, and we kind of alluded to this before we came on the podcast, and I think it's an important one to make, is that teens are being raised by their moms who have not done the work to uncover their teen that exist inside them that they never dealt with, all those subconscious filters that cause them so much suffering and pain that they just squash down, and they think it's not a problem anymore because high school is over. But all of those emotions are still in there, and every time their kid comes to them to tell them about something that's happening to them when they're not aware and they haven't done this work, it's triggering in them the same thing that's happening with their kids. So they're not really in a position to see things clearly and openly and the way they really are because their brain filter and the lens that they have of how they're looking at it. So how do you, is that something that you help the girls that you work with understand?
Yeah, I
I
think
never thought of that question before, but I'm kind of thinking now because it seems like it would be valuable to help them understand that some things could be getting triggered in the parent.
I think that a wonderful lesson actually this is something my husband's mantra that he gave me and one that I have borrowed and will give to I do give to my clients too is, assume positive intent. Assume positive intent. Mom is doing the best that she can with the tools that she has, right? And so mom is whatever she is putting on you. And I can speak to my own experience of, if we think about the subconscious programming and then the programming that I received in my household, a lot of that was about body and how your body looks a certain way. And if we look back at what messages my mom was getting, and she was doing the best that she could, but she didn't realize perhaps that then what the way that I was hearing it was, well, it's really important that I look a certain way. It's really important that my body is a certain way. And all she wanted was to avoid any, like any mother, most mothers, we just want our kids to be happy and healthy and we don't want them to hurt. And
Yeah, you know
so,
what's interesting though is that then we try to help our kids, but it's really coming from our own hurt in pain and it's not always serving them. So I think I'm not saying this against moms because of course moms love their children. I'm saying it to point out of how important it is to become aware of what's going on inside your own brain and all these hurts and aches and pains that you've been squashing down for years. And it's really like that's sort of like when you have a teenager in your home, like they're like a unique little group of people, right? And they can be that's some of the most challenging years that can take place in a family, especially if you have a teen that's a little bit, struggling and having a difficult time or is different than you as a parent. And you're just like, oh my God, like what's going on here? And the way they talk to you and the tone of voice and stuff. And it just like it's so triggering of all the things that you did yourself. And it's like projection. Like you get so mad at these kids and you get so worked up. But if you understood yourself better, you wouldn't get triggered nearly as much by them. So I just want to bring that up. Even if they don't come to you for coaching, parents, like it's beneficial that they do their own work. It's not just their kid that needs the work, right?
I mean, you and I are singing from the same song sheet of like everyone could benefit from it, but just to, yeah, be mindful of why am I triggered? Just mindfulness is such a beautiful thing, right?
Mhm.
Why am I so triggered? Even if we're not doing the deep dive into questioning thoughts and looking at a thought and saying, is this true? Is there another way to look at it? But just even to take a breath. I mean, I think sometimes the most powerful tool in anyone's tool belt, teen or parent, is to just pause and take a breath before you leap to action.
Yeah. Yeah. To become responsive instead of reactive. But
Sure.
you don't have a teen in your house yet, but when you do, you're going to see why I say dig a little deeper because it's very hard not to get reactive.
I will say out loud when before we got on, I said to Maureen, I don't have a teen in my house, but I have a 7-year-old who I am very aware of my response to her. And I often say, oh, she's my karma. But she too, she's a beautiful example of allowing emotion. She's a beautiful example of confidence and belief in self. And so, she teaches me a lot every day.
Yeah. I mean, our relationships are why we're here. And our biggest teachers are the most challenging people in our lives in terms of how we respond to them. Right? So it's really like it's a beautiful opportunity. I wish I knew when the girls were younger and teenagers in our family, my stepdaughters. I wish I knew now, or no, I wish I knew then what I know now. So having this information in your arsenal is going to be amazing it's not going to take everything away from it, but it's certainly going to make it a lot easier to cope with and deal with your knowledge of how to manage your brain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I said it earlier, like we can't escape the human experience, nor can teens escape the teenage experience. But again, if I known then what I know now, to know that you can choose to be kind to yourself and love yourself along the way, it just makes the ride that much better. And to know you then always have someone in your corner. And ultimately, like the saying, like, your ride or die, you are your ride or die. Like, that's it. You're with you forever. So why not choose to love that person and get to know her really well?
Yeah, I love that. Even planting the seed, planting the seed when kids are younger, that's like a beautiful way to just, even if it doesn't happen right then, it's just the idea that it's possible for me to
100
decide to create a relationship with myself where I love myself.
100%. Marie, I want to, so much of what we're talking about in, to your point, and the podcast that, we're not in high school anymore, is a lot of the moms that I talk to, and I've coached humans 13 to 75. We're undoing so much of that programming, right? We're retraining our brain. But with those teens, my hope is that these seeds, as you say, get in the foundation so that it's not, unprogramming they're doing later in life, which I know is a lot of the work that you and I did, right? 38 to realize that I can love and believe in myself. Man, if my 13-year-old even entertains it
Yeah.
as a possibility, she
Yeah.
might still be, or, they might still be looking at me as, you don't understand. Well, no, but this instance, but even if they entertain the belief that it's possible, that that's a huge win.
Yeah. And collectively, like all over the planet,
My gosh,
having teenagers do that. But so, all right. So I want to cover a couple of things though, because we're getting closer to the end of the interview. First, like, why don't you tell us a little bit about what it looks like to work with you?
So currently I am a one-on-one coach. So you can find me at confidencecoachforgirls.com and reach out and schedule a self-confidence consult for you or your teen. And then I always say, work with me for a season. This isn't, we've all had those coaching sessions where or that conversation where it's just like, oh, I feel so much better. But we're all eternal works in progress. And even self-confidence is a journey. So I say, give me a season so that we can learn how to cultivate and then strengthen that self-confidence muscle.
Yeah, as
So
long
the
as you're
season,
dealing with the brain, you're going to be going in and out of whatever, right? And it's a constant work in progress. Okay, so is there any final words of wisdom that you have for the audience? Anything that you didn't get to say? And it could be about anything.
oh, these are my final words of wisdom. I wrote these down. So I don't,
Okay.
I knew that this is the one question that I knew was coming. So that in my fact or fiction. This is what I would say, and that is self-confidence the choice. And as you know, I didn't know that until I was 38, that it's not something that, it was a genetic lottery or something you have or don't. It comes from knowing, loving, and believing in yourself. And that's a beautiful process, even to get to know, love, and believe in you, and to learn that love language, and to practice compassion. And that cycle of self-confidence, whether you fully believe that it means, your thoughts will cause this feeling of self-confidence. But that cycle is then when you feel it even a little, to take actions to prove those thoughts true. That's how you become more self-confident. If for someone who's looking to cultivate self-confidence, I would say find and practice beliefs that have you feeling it daily, even if you don't believe them yet. And then ask yourself what you would do in your life if you did believe them. And then go do that thing or take one step closer to that thing. Fueled by even that entertaining the belief that has you just slightly feeling confident. And then I think I touched on this earlier in the interview, Maureen, but I I say self-confidence rarely rides solo. Expect the doubt and the insecurity to come along, and especially if confidence is new. So I would recommend that you allow, accept, and you name those negative emotions. Like, I'm feeling doubt right now. And just don't buy the brain BS that is causing the negative emotion. Allow it to convince you something's gone wrong. And don't let those negative emotions stop you from living a life you love and creating whatever you want. Because we only got one shot and it's a beautiful one. So that's what I got.
Nice. I love that. Of course, I knew you would give us fabulous words of wisdom at the end of the podcast, especially since you prepared and wrote it down.
I did.
Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate, I know I could just totally see you working with teens. It just feels so right to me when you talk about it, and I can see how passionate you are about it. And I know that there's a lot of teens out there that could use you. So I'll put your links in the show notes. And then anytime I find anyone who needs a teen coach, I will spread the word because I know you and I consider you a friend. And I want to do anything I can to support anybody who is trying to make a difference, like a lot of us coaches are.
Oh, Maureen, thank you so much for the opportunity, and so mutual. I so appreciate I appreciate the opportunity to shoot the BS with you, but I also just appreciate, the friendship and the camaraderie and going out and ultimately all we're all trying to do is make the world a better place. So let's keep
That's a
going.
perfect way to end it. So audience, I know you learned something valuable here today. I'll see you next episode. If you like what you heard here today, I would really appreciate it if you would follow the Brain BS podcast, do a quick review, give me 5 stars, and share it with everyone you know. You can interact with me and request topics for the podcast or to be interviewed in the podcast in the Brain BS podcast community on Facebook. You can also go to www.thebrainbs.com to sign up for the Brain BS updates and get to know me better. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast and spreading the word. Always remember, the only thing standing between you and the more fulfilling life is understanding your Brain BS and choosing to live consciously every day, all day long.